Welcome everybody to a new edition of something, well, new that we're doing here on All Things MSP, and it's called Office Hours. And today I have some special guests with me. Half of them have been on my podcast. The other half still needs to be, but we're working on that. And they're both here today, so that's what really counts. So today we are having Office Hours with actually a podcast. And these are two good friends of mine. They are great people in the channel. It's been really great to see how they've expanded their role in the channel lately. And I thought it would be great to have them on the show to explain how they got started with a podcast and some of the things that they did and had to learn in order to start doing a podcast. Because this is starting from scratch, right? And in my own experience, starting a podcast is one of those things. Yes, there's some technical stuff that you need to learn, and they're going to go into that in a few minutes, but it's a very easy thing to do, like generally to get your messaging out there once you've learned how to do it. And because of that, it's a great way for MSPs to get their message out there to their audience. It's something that you can share with chambers of commerce and in Facebook groups that are local to your community, whatever it is. So podcasts are a great way to just spend a few minutes every week, every month, whatever it is, and create something that gets your message out there in a way that some people like to consume it, which is an audio podcast. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get the ladies on here. Hey,
hello.
Guys.
Hi.
So this is Morgan and Kelcye. A lot of you probably know them from the channel. They are on the road quite a bit these days, which is one of those things that I wanted to ask, because we'll just kick this off, is how did you guys find time to do a podcast?
That is a great question. Well, we're still ironing out the week to week because we try to do our podcast bi-weekly and sometimes it just doesn't work. But the way that we started doing it was when we were both at shows together, we'd make sure we brought our mic and we would record in the hotel room, like after the event kind of ended so for late. The day. Yeah. So late. We were up, I think the first time, was it like 1 or 2 a.m. recording. And then the next night we were doing editing and then we were putting it out the following, like 2 days after we recorded. So it's a lot. It's a lot of dedication, but it's worth it in the end.
That's
totally.
Awesome.
And we have to remind ourselves also that we put these deadlines on ourselves. This is something that we're doing in our spare time. So if like a deadline, we want to post by Friday, if that doesn't happen, we don't beat ourselves up over it. This is something we're putting out on our own time.
That we want to do. And we don't want to get to a point where we're exhausted doing it. And we don't want to come to a point either where it's not fun anymore. So we like to put some timelines on ourselves, but we give ourselves grace just to make sure that we put out the best content possible, but it's also easy on ourselves.
Yeah, that's important, right? Because I do the same thing. In fact, the last 2 weeks, I have not done a live stream. For a very important reason. And that is one of the reasons I do my live streams on Wednesday nights is because Amy is busy on Wednesday nights. And she actually had the last 2 Wednesdays off. And so I took the last 2 Wednesdays off from the live stream so that I could spend time with her. I have to choose sometimes between the channel and my wife. And usually the wife is going to win. So what made you guys? Yeah, it is. It's the right way to think about it, right? So what made you guys choose to do a podcast?
So going to take us back to last year because we were doing a webinar series together called New Kids on the Flock. And I feel like webinars are pretty easy to produce. You know, you've got the Zoom link, you send that out, people register, you put it on once, you're good. There's a little bit of prep time involved, but for the most part, like you do it, you're done. When we were thinking about like where we wanted to go with what we were doing and kind of changing the demographic of like what we were covering. A big thing that we had talked about was that we don't watch webinars in our free time. We listen to podcasts and we were like, if we're catering to the newer generation, the new in careers, like why shouldn't we move that to a different platform? And that was really where the the first thought had come is like, let's do a podcast. We don't have to get all clean and pretty. We can just record it, thinking it was going to be super easy, but not right away. There was a bit of a learning curve, and we were kind of just going in blind and looking at like whatever Google would provide us with, like how to record, what to edit. And it was so overwhelming until Kelcye's friend gave us his recommendations.
Yeah. That so is a great segue into how did you guys, get into this and what did you use? I know you used a training course. So Kelcye, if you'll explain how you ran into that and what that kind of entailed.
Yeah. So again, we were very overwhelmed. It felt like an impossible task on top of what we were already doing. But I have a former coworker. We worked together a while back who I knew he had a podcast. So I was like, okay, I'll just see. And so I texted him. I was like, David, how's it going? I'm trying to start a podcast and I'm so confused. I was like, what editing software did you use? What microphone did you use? Can you help me out? And he's like, I'll do you one better. I've got this course. It's called How to Start a Podcast in 24 Hours. And Morgan and I both were like, oh my God, amazing. So it's actually super in-depth, very engaging. You can learn how to find guests, easier ways to do interviews. So that way it's not awkward for you or for them. Editing software, microphone, things like that he recommends. Then how to promote it on socials even. A lot of really cool stuff. So that was super helpful. I will say we did not start in 24 hours, but you could with the course.
You really could. It has so many details in it on things that we weren't even thinking about that it just made it a lot easier for us because it did highlight everything that we needed to know.
Yeah, instead of it coming up as we got to it, we were able to kind of prepare. The platform that we use to upload our podcasts actually doesn't automatically go to Apple Music. And so that was something we had to figure out. And I actually texted David about that. And he was like, oh, I didn't realize that when I created it, that wasn't a problem. I'll go update that. So it's been a really fun learning experience and super grateful to have had the course. Am I allowed to plug it? Can I
yes,
share that?
Absolutely. This is learning.
Yeah. So it's called How to Start a Podcast in 24 Hours. You can get it at realdavidezel.com/courses. And we have a discount code. Actually, you use that at checkout, you get 20% off.
Awesome. And I will put all of that into the show notes, the description, wherever you're watching this, you'll be able to find that. Now, I will say that I have listened to, I think, all of the episodes except for the most recent one. And I was actually impressed, by the way, in the audio quality of the podcast. So it works. So whatever you did, it works because I could not tell you were not both pros at doing this. So
thank you.
It helps when you're doing it with someone you're so comfortable with. For sure. But I have gone through to listen to other podcasts and they'll start and they sound so grainy and far away. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad we didn't go through that. We all start somewhere, I understand, but I'm very glad we started where we started.
Right.
Yeah. And you guys made a really good point about something that I want to dive into here because this is important for the MSPs who are thinking about doing this or thinking about doing any kind of marketing, right? A lot of them are older, at least the MSP owners still. It's changing, which I think is great. There's getting to be a younger generation in it, but a lot of them, they're needing to definitely cater to younger audiences. And what you described is you did a podcast because that's what you listen to. That's where you spend your spare time because you're doing other things while you're listening to those podcasts. And so it's important that they keep in mind that they need to explore these other avenues like podcasts, like TikTok, like Instagram Reels, where the people that are not like them, important point, are hanging out.
For sure. Well, and I think you do a really good job of making sure you hit all of the different platforms as well that we could learn from, because when you do your live streams, you're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Am I missing one?
No, that's the three.
Okay, yeah. But that is more than like what we do. Like we could upload our stuff to YouTube and cross those platforms as well. But it is keeping in mind, like, who do you want to target and where are they at? And just making sure that, you kind of have to open your eyes a little bit and see where else people are, because it's not just the way you do things. If you want to cater to, your audience, I definitely recommend doing what you know best. But I think the course helps a lot in opening your eyes and being able to look at, like, okay, these are the options I have and this is what I should do.
Cool. So what was the most surprising thing that you learned out of the course?
Oh,
I know, tough question,
Good
right?
question. We learned everything. So I'm trying to think of, well, I know I learned everything. So I'm trying to think of what I learned the most.
I can definitely say we learned that having a pre-recorded introduction does not work for us. Every time we tried recording one just to have that we can plug into each one, it just didn't quite feel right, didn't have the right energy, just felt a little too like we were trying to pre-record something. So that was an interesting thing we learned, because one of the steps is like, okay, now you do your introduction, and we tried, but just not for us.
That's interesting, because now that you mention it, I feel the same way about the podcast that I do with Justin, right? We always have a better piece of intro, something that's funny, something that's fun, that we record. Because here's what I learned. We press record before we ever start talking, whether it's meant to go in the podcast or not, because there's always something that comes up during that preamble conversation that ends up being the introduction.
That's something that we should do, because we don't do that, because we talk for probably like an hour before about everything. And like maybe 20% of it is podcasts, but maybe we should just start turning it on.
I don't know. We do typically try to set a phone up. We like a nice little candid recording photo. So we have caught some funny things, at least on our phone recording.
Another big thing that we learned is how to prep for the podcast as well. Like we had, I think the first couple of ones, we didn't really like outline it all, like what we wanted to talk about throughout the podcast. So we were just kind of having a conversation the whole time, and we kind of got lost in some thoughts, and we would just go down a rabbit hole and have to pull ourselves out. So now we make sure that we're like, this is what the topic is, and here's how we're going to, jump from point to point and pull ourselves back in, so we're not rabbit holing a bunch. And that took a couple of recordings where I was like, okay, I've got to cut about 20 minutes of this, because this has nothing to do with anything we were talking about.
Yeah, I'd say the editing has gotten a lot quicker because we're better at getting to business and staying on track.
Yeah.
We definitely still go off track, but that's fun.
Yeah, it just happens. It happens with Justin and I, especially when we're recording a podcast where we don't have a guest, and it sometimes just happens, and you have to roll with it, and you can fix almost everything in post.
Absolutely.
So I'm interested because, me, technical, which microphones do you guys use? Because they do sound really good.
Awesome. I use the Rode.
Okay.
The Rode. Feature wise, I'll have to look back in my purchase history, because it's been a little while since I got it. So bear with me and I'll find it. But it's been super solid. It is like the whole setup. It's got a good mic, and you can change from where the mic kind of comes through. But bear with me as I find which one it actually is.
Well, Rode makes good stuff. Like I carry some Rode equipment when I'm on the road. I didn't do that intentionally. I have their wireless microphones for doing video interviews. Like sometimes you guys have seen me in a booth holding microphones. Those are made by Rode, and I've always had really good luck with them.
It is the Rode NT USB condenser microphone.
Yep. I've
I'll
heard
let-
really
I'll
good
let you
things
link
about
it.
that.
It's good. I like it a lot.
And then I use the Yeti Blue microphone. That was actually not one that David suggested, but Jimmy suggested it. And I do trust Jimmy's opinion on lots of things.
Yes.
And I've since come to find out that a lot of people use that. So it made me feel better, more confident in my decision. And my headphones actually are from when I took sound design in college, and they are Shure. And I really do like Shure's products. So.
Yeah, they make really good products as well. And Yeti's been around and been doing this for a while, right? Making really good microphones that were easy to use. Like they were some of the first good USB microphones that you could buy. In fact, funny story, my daughter actually had one back when she was doing some content creation in high school.
That's cool.
Right.
It wasn't a Yeti Blue. The Yeti Blue is a, kind of a newer model.
Well, it's also really convenient to travel with. It folds up into itself really nicely and doesn't take up too much space. And I feel like it also is well protected in its own, holder. So I like
and
that.
that's something I haven't done yet, is I haven't gotten a good microphone for recording the podcast on the road, because of course I haven't been on the road much this year. Speaking of, just to kind of, update, where are you guys going to be next? Do you know?
You want to go, Kelcye? You want me to go? I had to think for a second.
Like we're gonna breathe. I have a little bit of time at home. Thankfully, I am moving at the end of this month, so I requested a bit of a break on the road so I could focus on that. And then we have the 4th of July, so pretty quiet week for, I think, everyone in the channel that week. And I actually get to stay here in Dallas that next week. We've got exchange security. But then I go to ASCII in Ohio, which I believe Morgan will also be there. So that's as far as I can think of right now.
Awesome.
Robin's Producers Club. Well, there's all sorts of stuff coming.
Yeah.
Anybody
I had
going to be at
check my
ChannelCon?
calendar. No.
Anybody going to be at ChannelCon? No?
I was originally
Unfortunately.
going to, but I just got taken off. I'm actually re-requesting to be added back today. So we'll see. I don't know.
All right. Well, you're going to miss out. You know that if you're not there.
I know. I'm bummed.
But this is also, I'm excited because this is like my first event since Exchange in March, maybe?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's a
It's a
little
big
crazy.
break.
Got
But
cobwebs
then
in your suitcase?
I don't even know where my suitcase is. That's how bad that is. I actually put it away. Although I do need to get it out because we're taking a personal trip for the 4th of July weekend. And
Fun.
but then I have ChannelCon and then I have Exchange almost back to back there. So I will be at Exchange in Nashville.
Awesome. Well,
Very
I will
nice.
be there too. So that will be the first time I get to see you this year.
That's
In
awesome.
person, at least.
Yeah, because you did the live stream. Unlike Kelcye.
I'm sorry.
Come on,
I wasn't in town. There was so much going on.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time because someday you will be on the live stream.
Absolutely. It will be an honor.
All right. Well, we are getting to the end of the time that we had scheduled for this. And so thank you guys very much. I really do appreciate you coming on and talking to the group about really how easy it is to start a podcast. Even if you aren't sure what you're going to do or even why you're going to do it, there are courses. There's the course that we're going to link down in the description below. Use those resources, because if you are not reaching the people you want to reach with your marketing message as an MSP, this is an avenue where it's very easy. It's very cheap. There's very little, setup cost to it. And it's another thing that you can do, especially if you have more time than money to work on your marketing. So again, thanks very much, guys, and really appreciate this. And I will see you at some point, whether it's virtual again or live. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks,
Have a
Eric.
great
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.